Everyone, good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to Social Value Matter 2020 in Bangkok. And such my great pleasure that I've been together with, I would say, great leader, great social value leader around the world on the stage, on a virtual conference from international from Taiwan and also from Hong Kong. We have Dr. Adam Richards, Director of Impact Social Value International with us. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
Okay. And next we have Dr. Cheng Wei Mark, Executive Director, Social Value Taiwan.
Hello, good afternoon.
And also together with Dr. Terence Yuan, Founder and Executive Director, Hong Kong Institute of Social Impact Analysis.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon. And on my right side, we have Dr. Santi Termprasert from Sri Rural Universities, and he also Standard Advisory Council Social Value Thailand.
Hello, everyone.
So how are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Good.
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, great to be part of this. It's a great week.
Yes.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your preparation to sharing your experience driving the social value community in all around the world. Okay, and today in this session, we would like to spend 1 hour together to sharing the experience in each corner of the world. How the social value community have been setting up and what is going on, what's happening around the world. Because right now in Thailand, since 2017, since the first SRI practitioner workshop have been brought to here in Thailand by Terence, Jeremy, and also Adam. Right now it's 3 years. I would say we're still learning every day. We're still learning every day to use SRI in practice, to use SRI to scale the social impact and also to expand the SRI to create a real impact to our society. So we would love to learn from all of you guys how you make the best of SRI in implementation, and especially in the situation. I think all around the world face the same challenges, greatest challenges of our world, of our future of the world. So it's good time to rethink or reset the way we accounting for value in traditional way. I like to learn from you, Dr. Adam. I like to learn from the social value geek or social value master to share us about social value international movement.
Thank you very much. I certainly wouldn't call myself a master. Yeah, possibly a social value geek. It is, again, just a pleasure to be here with my colleagues on the panel and to be in this virtual room with Social Value Thailand. And of course, we'll look forward to doing this face-to-face as soon as possible. So yeah, I would like to sort of start by setting the scene of talking around the ideas internationally and how these ideas are going mainstream. Professor Mark, of course, will know this is the title of our Social Value Matters conference last year, when we spoke about the ideas going mainstream. And I think, the idea that Social Value Thailand has only been in operation for 3 years is amazing because so much is happening so quickly. And that's reflected also on the international stage as well. So I think it's important to talk about why we want to do this. And it is about resetting, rethinking, building back better, doing everything I think we would all accept that we need to do, whether that's to achieve the sustainable development goals, whether that's to improve the performance of our own organization, be it a social enterprise, an NGO, an impact investor, or anything else. But it's not just us in this space, which is really exciting. And over the last few years, the sort of rate of interest and the the people coming to the table or being more transparent, more explicit about their interest and involvement has really escalated. And that's what makes me extremely positive and hopeful about the future, that we can, you know, change the way the world accounts for value, because the reason we want to change the way the world accounts for value is to reset things, as Sackletip rightly says. And this is the very mission of Social Value International. I hope you know about Social Value International as part of the conference. We have now networks around 25 different regions in the world. We have members in over 45 different countries. And what unites us is a mission to change the way the world accounts for value. And what that means in reality is making better decisions, decisions that take account of more than just the financial value, the financial impacts, so that we can reduce inequality that exists between people, between countries, that we can look to reduce the environmental harm and degradation that our activities and decisions create, and also improve the well-being of people. So if we want to do things differently, then we need to account for value differently. We need to take into account the effects of our decisions on people and the planet. And I know that my colleagues will go into more specific detail perhaps than I am. But again, the sort of really reassuring part at the moment is this mainstreaming, and we are not alone. We are, you know, all around the world, but there are some other entities and organizations that are really spearheading this conversation as well. And one of those is the Impact Management Project. IMP is focused very much on those investors for impact, or those that want perhaps more responsible investment. And it's a collection of over 2,000 organizations from around the world who, as it says in front of you, want to create global consensus. Again, just as we do, creating those standards on how to do this in a way that is good enough to do things differently, to make a difference. Social Value International is a part of the Impact Management Project. We are one of the standard setters in a network that includes others such as the Global Reporting Initiative, UNDP, OECD, and a range of other organizations. What's really positive is that we are all pulling in the same direction. So I think one of the big challenges, so we've got lots of really interesting and important trends, but I think we should also deal with some of the challenges that the movement faces. And one of those big challenges is that there is still a perception that there are many different ways of doing impact management. If we were being honest, there are not lots of different ways of effectively doing impact management if the agenda is to maximize your impacts and really do things differently, as my friend Kumbo rightly says. So to do things differently, we'll talk about some key principles and some key dimensions shortly. But what is crucial is to say that it is not a choice between one and another framework. They are largely complementary, but we need to keep that laser-like focus on why we're doing it in the first place. And why we're doing it is to change the way the world accounts for value, to reduce inequalities, to improve well-being, and reduce environmental harm as well. And another area that is growing rapidly, and Professor Mark, I'm sure, will be able to comment on this further, is the growing interest and recognition from academia. And of course, my friend Dr. Santi on the stage with us is another key example of just this. Harvard University are also one of the leading lights in this movement, again, a member of Impact Management Project, and Harvard were also presenting at the Social Value Matters conference this week. So Harvard, again, want to create consensus. They want to drive standards on how we can capture external impacts, not just for investors, but also for managers, for that decision-making piece. So again, all pulling in a very similar direction. So we have impact investors, we have leading academic institutions, we have Social Value International, which represents individuals and organizations from across the whole impact spectrum. And another piece of the puzzle is large corporations. So the Value Balancing Alliance is a collection of organizations, some of those you can see in front of you, very large organizations, that really do recognize the importance of valuation. And just like SROI, it's valuation in a monetary sense. So organizations are using environmental P&L, profit and loss account, to really identify where they can reduce cost, reduce risk, but importantly, where they can also spot opportunities for innovation and product growth. So a lot of entities, a lot of organizations from all corners of the world really pulling in that same or very, very similar direction. And again, I've said it before, but that is really what is exciting at the moment. But we're still left with that question of, okay, these ideas are good in principle, but what about in practice? And we're still forever faced with that question. I'm sure all of us on the panel deal with it quite regularly of, well, where do you start? What do you do? And aren't there lots of different ways of doing it? And again, Social Value International, as part of Impact Management Project, is really spearheading this consensus driving. And what IMP have done is to condense what lots of different frameworks are saying and identify that we're all talking about largely the same things. We're talking about those dimensions in front of you: the what, the who, the how much, the contribution, and risk. And this is crucial because it means we focus on effects, those outcomes for people, and how important those changes are. These are the impact questions that SROI is built upon. It understands those changes and the value from perspective of stakeholders. We then undertake the quantitative assessment that allows us to understand how much change is happening, for how many people, and for how long. And crucially, understanding our contribution. One of the big questions that we still have to address is, changes are happening for people, great. Some are positive, some others are negative. How much of that is down to our activities, down to our intervention, down to our investment? What is our contribution? So that question is dealt with explicitly. And perhaps what the IMP have done more explicitly than SVI has previously is to really talk about risk. And I see risk as a real positive. It's about managing risk. It's about managing the risk that we don't create as much impact as is expected, but also as is necessary to change people's lives, to address the system, the needs that people have. It's about making sure the evidence we have is good enough to support those requirements. So that's very much the sort of operational piece, but it's crucial that we think about how to get this data, how to get this evidence. And that's where the social value principles come in. So again, one of my big messages today is, yes, lots of people talking about these ideas and pulling in the right direction, but we are doing so in a complementary way. The impact management project's dimensions are supported explicitly by the principles of social value. They put stakeholders at the center of data collection and how we manage the results. The stakeholder tell us what has changed, how important those changes are. It allows us to focus on those changes that are most significant, that matter to people, that therefore affect our decision making, and we will do so transparently. And I think, again, one of the big challenges for the future, and I think this is probably true for Thailand and many, if not most, other countries. In fact, I would say it's a key challenge for all who are engaged in impact measurement and management, is that final principle, verification. If we're producing impact reports, SROI reports, for external stakeholders, commissioners, public policy makers, funders and investors, then it is explicitly demanded that we need to have those results verified and to do so externally. So just like financial accounts, your SROI report, your social accounts need to be independently assured and audited, because that gives the audience the confidence to make use of the data, to do things differently, to build back better, to reduce inequality, to reduce environmental harm, and improve people's well-being. So lots of positive stuff happening, lots of organizations pulling in the same direction. Impact measurement is not as challenging perhaps as people think. The crucial piece of the puzzle is making sure we do something with those results and we go from impact measurement to impact management. So lots of positive things happening right now.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Adams, for give a big picture as a very important and the extent of social value. And I would say that I believe that right now we are going in a real, I would say, in the mainstream. And so let's listen from Capital World, another one that can show us how business looking at us, how the business, what is the perspective of business, and how they can implement or using SRI to gain the valuation of their business. So I like to hear from you, Dr. Terence. What businesses in Hong Kong using SRI in this stage, and especially in this crisis situation.
Okay, I will share the screen now.
Sure.
So you see my screen now?
Yes, but it's duplicate. You can show one screen.
Duplicate?
Yes. It's presenter view right now, but it's fine. But it's fine. You cannot fix it.
Okay.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, thanks for inviting me to join this session. It is our global conference week. We had a session yesterday hosted by Taiwan, and today we have this session hosted by Thailand. And thank you for Adam setting the scene, talking about globally the recent developments on social impact management. Friends from Social Value Thailand, they just mentioned 3 years ago, we conducted the first SRI training in Bangkok, and it's so amazing to see that so much has have happened in Thailand. And I learned that practitioners and academics, they're working to produce SRI reports and trying to up the game and let people know about what social impact and social value have been created. And maybe I should talk a little bit about during the pandemic, how we could continue to create value during the difficult times. So while in Thailand, you are working on to produce the SR report, in a sense, you are still talking about reporting, right? But when we face with some crisis, faced with the pandemic, actually we need to actively manage our impact. We cannot just wait. During the pandemic, we still need to deliver our promise to create value for the underprivileged, for our clients, for our students. So when in Hong Kong, when we talk about what should we do in face of the COVID-19, lots of things were disrupted. I will talk to the operators in Hong Kong in some sharing session. We should continue to make use of the impact framework to guide our decision making. So Adam mentioned about the impact management project, which has this model that covers the 5 dimensions of impact. When we do our SRI analysis or do the impact analysis, we mostly would not explicitly talk about risk. But in this presentation, I would like to focus more on how we could focus on the risk assessment so that we could better manage our operation and to make sure we deliver the social impact of our project. So very often when I talk to, say, the impact investors, they would readily understand when you talk about financial investment, you will talk about simultaneously the return and the risk. So if you put some money in the bank, it is a low return, but it is also very low risk. And if you buy shares in the stock market, it is high return, but you need to take more risk. In the space of social impact, all the social enterprise and then all the investors or government funders, they always want to get more social impact and social value, but rarely they will talk about impact risk. But actually, it is very important when we talk about social return, we also need to talk about impact risk. So impact risk, you could understand impact risk as the risk that the expected outcome, social outcome, would not realize. That is the social impact risk. And all of us will, all the operator, they will do something like this to create the theory of change, right? We have the input, activities, outputs, and outcome, right? And this is a risk model that combined with the theory of change. So we have some external risk. We call it PEST. It's the short form for political, economic, social, and technological factors. That are some external risks that affect our project. So I would say COVID-19, the pandemic, is also an external risk that affect our operation. So under a pandemic, is it true that our theory of change is still failed? That's a big question during the pandemic. In a normal time, you can deliver your service using your existing theory of change. But during the pandemic, there might be a lot of scenarios that you could not follow your normal program. Under the pandemic, your normal program delivery will be disrupted. You may need to modify ways to deliver your services. Maybe you need to use, if you are doing a counseling service, you can't do face-to-face counseling. You might need to do online counseling. And then you need to think about, if you are an operator, you need to think about reallocating your resources. Maybe to redeploy your staff, your human resources, etc., etc. You need to ration the service provision. And then there are some unforeseen changes in our language. It is a new outcomes that might happen and might experienced by the service users. So if the students can't go back to schools to attend classes, they need to stay at home to use online channel to join classes. What would be the new outcome that might be experienced by the students? How about the more wealthy student compared to the average class students? Okay, so we need to think about new service segments under the new scenarios. Okay, so at the same time, we are not operating on our own. There are other operators and government or other parties might do a lot of things during the pandemic. And as we continue to deliver our program, we need to make sure the things we do had to complement and had to have some sort of coordination with some other efforts. So these are all the scenarios that are under the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are talking about the situation in the past year, but as an operator, you need to think beyond the current time, and you need to think about how about the next year and the coming years. So I think we all know there are lingering uncertainties in the coming years. And then COVID-19, as I mentioned earlier, it is an unforeseen external risk. So we need to go back to this framework to analyze all this risk. And COVID is an external risk, but the SRI framework and the IMP framework also talk about there are other risks that we could manage, we could try to identify, and we should try to minimize, and we should try to mitigate. So for example, one of the risks is the execution risk. So right now, as an example, we are using the Zoom conference to organize this discussion. We are trying to execute this thing. So other than doing a face-to-face conference, we are doing the online conference. So if we have some technological issue or internet issue, we might not be able to execute this thing. And this is a risk. Okay, so like say for the schools, they can't go back to school to run the classes. So how could we execute some alternative way to run the classes? So we need to make sure the new way to run the classes, we need to make sure we could deliver the original outcome we want to deliver. And then in relation to outcome risk, there are lots of categories under outcome risk. I mentioned earlier, there might be some new outcome. I think in Hong Kong and also in the UK, it has been reported that domestic violence has increased because of COVID and because of the homestay, that the family member had to stay at home. And then there's possible that domestic violence, some kind of, fighting might happen. And these are externality that otherwise won't be that severe during normal time. So we need to address externalities, and in SROI, we have that component built in our framework. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we need to think about segmentation. Using the example about on students attending classes. In the case of Hong Kong, many students will stay home and then they will use an online platform to attend classes. But we have different categories of students. Some students are more well off. It is quite easy for them to use the internet and then to join the classes. But then we have the low income family students, and then they're actually quite different. So in the case of segmentation, of course, we said we try to provide them with some assistance, and then so that they could better accommodate the new scenario. But we need to make sure we are not just addressing to the needs of the average student. We need to address the needs of different categories of students. So we want to make sure the students who are below average could be given more assistance. Okay? And then, of course, in SROI, we also talk about additionality, things that would happen anyway. And also, this is difficult, but as we continue to adjust our program to cope with the pandemic, we need to collect timely evidence so that we could make course changes very, very quickly. So these are the examples and the summary of what I've just mentioned. So in the COVID-19 scenario, we need to modify service delivery and ration service provision. So we need to address the execution risks. When we change the program, we need to make sure the new theory of change or the adjusted theory of change has to be a failure theory of change. And then in addressing externality risk, there are unforeseen outcome experienced by service users. So we need to keep close contact with the stakeholders and learn what are the new changes experienced by them. And then we need to manage the segmentation risk, learn about, we have different categories, stakeholders who would have different, who would be impacted differently during the pandemic. And then we want to make sure the intervention will not be duplicated. Government will do something, maybe some churches might do something, and then other parties will do something. And as a service operator, how we could make sure cope with all the other operator, and then try not to duplicate the effort. And finally, we have the evidence risk. We need to collect the timely evidence to support the decision making. So all in all, this is an example that we could actually actively using the both the IMP framework and the SRI principles to guide the day-to-day operation of of the service organizations. And we should not wait 1 year later or 2 years later and then to start calculate the SRI and do a report. We need to help the stakeholders, help the beneficiary as soon as possible. So very briefly, I introduced the risk dimension of the impact management framework, and then there are different categories of risks. So I only mentioned a few that I think that are most relevant in the pandemic situation, but there are actually, in the IMP framework, they identified 9 categories of impact risk, but I won't go over them one by one. And then there are different tables and templates we can use to try to manage those risks. So, but to conclude, the important message is, as Adam and also Bao has discussed earlier, we need to move beyond measurement to management, right? So using the risk perspective to manage our activities, I think it is really, really important, really, really relevant during the time of the COVID-19. And it is actually a very good opportunity for the operator to put these tools into practice and try to manage the activities to increase or to maximize the impact to the beneficiaries. I will end my presentation here.
Wow, thank you so much, Terence. You are waking up, waking us up, not just only SRI report as a end of the process, but actually it's very, very useful to use as an execution and also manage your risks. How can we manage unintended and negative impact that might occur during your operation, and how can we review your intervention or review your operation to still get the target as same as financial target, but we like to achieve also social impact target, right?
Yeah.
So how you in terms of finance?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting point that I never thought before about how to apply the SRI with risk management. And I think it's very helpful for organization that they not only calculate the SRI for the interpretation or just the number, but they can apply to the execution in terms of risk management that can improve the project or the performance of the organization. I think this is very interesting and very useful tools for when we apply the SRI.
Yes, to CEO, to the leader of the organization to reconsider. Yeah. All right, next, thank you so much. Next, we like to listen to Professor Mark in the term of that they using SRI in academy.
Okay, let me share my screen. Wait a second. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So I would like to share the situation in Taiwan, whether what kind of social value development in Taiwan from the perspective of academia. Actually, Taiwan is a very unique case in the world, I think I have to say. So as you can see, have this is a Grand Hotel, right? Grand Hotel is a very famous hotel in Taipei, and you see the light, it's called 0. So which means we don't have 0 cases for about 5 consecutive months. And around the right picture is a Taipei 101. It's also say 0. So which means in Taiwan, we have very good control over the COVID-19 pandemic, and now we even have very few cases, such as 1 to 3 cases every day, but this case actually from outside, so we don't have domestic case for over I think over 5 months. So So Taiwan very good fighting COVID-19. So actually for the university, actually we still students just still need to go to school. We don't close any universities. And at the beginning, I think in March and April, actually we have to check the temperature in front of the building. But since April 30th, we don't have any new domestic cases. So since June, the building actually don't need to check students' temperature. So and they don't need to wear mask as well. But if you take the public transportation, you still need to wear mask. And restaurant business actually just as usual. So fortunately, I think we can still work or be educated in just like normal life. Okay, so the next slide is about the statistics from New York Times, and as you can see, actually in the last 7 days we only have about 3 cases. So but all these 3 cases actually from outside. So if they take airplane to Taiwan, so we have control. So we check whether they have the COVID-19 symptom, and so far I think we did very good job. Okay, so so that's good news for Taiwan. So I have to say, this year actually we still continue what need to do for the academic. Okay, so for example, this year at the unit center, so we still have the unit price. So this year we have our 5th edition. But this year, I think we want to do something different. So, which means actually for the last 4 years, actually, even though we organize unit price, we also urge the participants to describe their social impact. But somehow, because even though we also provide some workshop, but I have to say most of the business proposal actually that do not describe their social impact very clearly. So I think this year, I think we want to do something better. So we invite Social Value International and Social Value Taiwan as co-organizer of this event. So we also, of course, we also invite Make Sense as a co-organizer of the event. And so in addition, at the beginning of the unit price, we provide 10 must-know courses for social entrepreneurs, 5 in Chinese, 5 in English, and one of the course is about how to maximize your impact. Okay, how to maximize your impact. We also invite practitioners in Taiwan because so far I think Taiwan have many accredited practitioners, so we also invite practitioners to give our competing teams a rough idea about an introduction about SRI. And a very important format of a very important improvement this year is about we will also provide trainings for the top 10 things. Okay, so which means because we just had our final round of the unit price last week. So so starting in next month, in October and November, actually we will provide at least one training about associate practitioner workshop. Okay, so it's about AP1 workshop. So we wish our final listings, top 10 things, if they want to continue, if they want to succeed their social business model, they have to learn the technique about measuring their social impact. Okay, so so this is from the academic side. So we also wish students or the youth, if they want to pursue the social enterprise, social business paths, they need to learn this kind of know-how. And we embed such kind of training in our so-called after the prize trainings. Okay, so I think that's very important for this year's competition. It's not this prize actually for all. It's for youth in Taiwan, which under age 45. So not only students, any youth under age 45 are eligible to attend it. So it's a nationwide competition. I think so. This is going to be. I think this year. I think maybe if this year we think it's good, so we'll continue doing this way. Okay, so that's one perspective, and another perspective is so since 4 years ago, the Ministry of Education in Taiwan they announced a new nationwide project, called University Social Responsibility Project. So university can propose what they want to do for their nearby community. So university is not just only the research center, education center. They also want the university to do something with so-called social responsible to their nearby community. So fortunately, National Central University, we received 5 USR, we call University Social Responsibility Project, USR project, last year, 5 projects. I think this is the most number of USR projects in Taiwan. So actually the Uni Center also have a project, a USR project called Young May Social Impact Reengineering Project. So we hope we can train a student team, and this student team can go to the community to help the local NGO, NPO, or social enterprise to measure their social impact, to measure their social value. So as you can see the screen, we also invite Adam to give our students some lectures about their projects. Okay, so Adam provide us 3 lecture about social value measurement, social value SRI. So we will continue doing this. So which means USR in Taiwan, USR project in Taiwan, because they want to make impact to their nearby community. So we also wish to push the ministry to know, if they want to know their impact, SRI is a very good tool, you know, to improve their impact, to measure their impact. So actually, I was also invited by the Ministry of Education to give them some advice about how to measure the impact of USR projects. So I will keep pushing the ministry maybe to think about maybe use the SR framework into the USR project evaluation. Okay, and so the evaluation will not be just the output-based evaluation. There will be outcome-based evaluation. This is what we want to do. Okay. So so this year, the Uni Center is also proud to be a co-host of the Asia Pacific Social Innovation Summit. Okay, so this is the biggest social innovation event in Taiwan every year since 3 years ago. Actually, the funding is from the government, the central government. So the Uni Center is proud to be one of the co-host of the summit. So I also push the organizer to think about we should have one day maybe focus on describing and also describing and understanding the importance of social impact. So as you can see the screen, sorry, it's in Chinese, in Mandarin. September 22nd, this day is called social innovation, the impact of social innovation. Okay, so the whole day actually we arrange several speakers talking about their social impact, how to measure their social impact. And of course, we also invite Ben as the speaker because I'm the moderator. So we have a master class on that day. So we call the social impact evaluation workshop. Okay, so I invite Ben also to to have a introduction about social value international, SRY, how to become a accredited practitioner. So for all the audience who are interested in social innovation. So I think this is also very useful for social enterprise, social entrepreneurs in Taiwan, or also in Asia Pacific region. Okay, so so of course in the Unit Center actually also helped Taoyuan City government to become the first social business city in Asia, because social business city is a program supported by Professor Yunus, and Taoyuan City now is one of the, it's already entered the program and is supposed to be accredited by Professor Yunus as the first social business city in Asia. So we also push the city government to, if for any social business, any social entrepreneur in Taoyuan City, so they need to understand the importance of social value measurement. So each year we have social business startup competition. So social value measurement is a must-know course, okay, for all participants. So after that, after the competition, we also provide mentoring. So social value measurement is also the must-know methodology. All of the finalist team, all of the winning team, they need to know about become a successful social entrepreneur. Okay. So so about social value Taiwan this year, actually we also provide AP1 training. We also invite Adam, to give us a webinar about why social value management is important and why they want to become a practitioner. So we also have a AP1 Chinese workshop in August. So fortunately, I think I and Catherine are the first two associate practitioner in Taiwan. We already passed the exam. Very difficult, I have to say. It's not that difficult, but I have to say you have to complete more, I think 60 questions in 2 hours in English. So it's, I think for me, I don't have enough time to answer all the questions. But fortunately, I and Catherine are still pass the exam. So we also want to share this kind of experience to all social entrepreneur, any people who want to, do something better for their social business, social enterprise. Okay, so that's basically the new development in Taiwan from the perspective of academic. So if any have any questions, so maybe you can discuss later. So that's all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for sharing so many aspects of implementing SRI in a very micro scale with youth. Surprisingly, that right now in Taiwan, youth can help community by support them to run SRI in the community, to develop their community, not just only communities, but also your work with the city of the government to drive a social impact city, something like that. Very amazing. And also, just so you know, Taiwan is the, I would say, the has SRI report, the highest SRI report in Asia. We are going to follow you soon, and we need your advice so much. Thank you.
Sure.
Right. Next, as we mentioned before that Thailand starting social value community since 2017 officially. With the first SRI workshop, we right now have like 1,000 participants joining our network, our movement, and also in the policy level in research, innovation. Right now, university or research kind of required to access their impact from their research and academic, right? And not just only academic, but also in SMEs. Right now, going to say the recognition program or the award embedded in the award for the factory in the Prime Minister Award for the factory in Ministry of Industrial. Mm-hmm. So many factories right now aware of and interesting to use SRI to access their impact. Mm-hmm. In another part, in government, in state enterprise also promoting SRI in a state-owned enterprise, 50 state-owned enterprise in Thailand. And in terms of private sector, for Asian or Thailand, DJSI require them to disclose that social impact measurement in their report. So a few years that we have been developing this social impact ecosystem, social impact framework in Thailand. Dr. Santi, what would you see? What would you see the challenging in Thailand and the difficulty in doing or running a SRI in Thailand? Can you share with us?
Yeah, I think the first challenge is about the SRI in Thailand is about how to. I think because nowadays in most business are going to follow the SDG goals from the UN, and then to try to enhance their social value and the impact to the society. Even they are the business, they're not only making only a profit, but they try to help the society better. So because this is like a theme of the nowadays business, so that I think most business or even the social the state enterprise they try to make more impact to the society as well. So this is they try to find how to measure the social value, and nowadays because we have a tool called the SRI, so I think this is a very useful and helpful for them to help them create the social value. But the challenge that I found that for measuring the SRI in Thailand is about the database and about accuracy of the evaluation process that they always mentioned. But today I got the idea because when I listened from the specialists from the other countries, and we not only focus on the accuracy of the number, but I think there are many aspects or dimensions that we should concern when we use a SRI tool. But for make them more feel better about the accuracy. So in my project that I have done is about I try to collect the data and try to set up like a portal of the database of the indicators, because that when we measure an outcomes and there are many indicators, so they always ask me about how we measure it. Okay, we try to change the slide. Okay, this is my project that this is on the process, because I try to collect many data. This is the data from the Social Value International. I correct the report as much as I can. It's about 120 reports that accredited by the Social Value International, and I try to make them in the category in many activities, like some project for disability, for elder, or for children. And then this data I collect from many countries, like in UK, in Taiwan, as Kun Sakuntip mentioned about that. The SRI report in Taiwan have a lot, okay? And this is about, I try to collect the data, like the SRI, because many organizations always ask me, and also you as well, how much of the SRI could be, should be, yeah. And we try to find the benchmark for them, okay. But actually, I try to persuade them that actually it's not comparable because it depends on the activity and the context of the business. But to make them more feeling better, I try to collect this data about the range of the SRI, okay, about 77 projects from 120 that are, yeah, more than half that SRI is about 1 to 5, okay, and the average of the 90 about 19% of the project that in the children and youth and families, the SRI on the average is about 3.64. Okay, so this could be like a guideline, just a guideline for, just a guideline for them. Or and the average of the SRI about 5.1 to 10. This about 15% of the project is focusing on the children and youth and families, and the average is about 7.3, something like this. This is on process of my research, not finished yet, but I try to present for you. And for the project that can create the SRI more than 10 times, it's about 15%. Okay, it's about no, it's about 15 projects from the 120 projects. Okay, and the most is about 20% of the art and music and culture, recreation and support. They create about 15, an average of 15.01, something like this. This is about how to average the SRI as a benchmark for the other project. I also try to collect the data, but not in this slide, about the indicators of the outcome, because normally we always have some question about how we measure this social value, because it's not economic value. Most people always familiar with the economic value and easy to measure, but for the social value, sometimes it's difficult. So I try to collect like a database or the portal that they can pick up like a tools for them to apply, not use directly, because as I mentioned, the SRI cannot like use because they are different in different contexts. So we have to apply for it. Just give them an idea. So this is a stage that I'm doing in my research. Okay.
Yeah, very good, very great. And it's kind of our collaboration. We like this research to be published in Thailand, in Thai as well. So you guys gonna have like a bunch of indicator, a bunch of valuation. How can we evaluate the confidence? How we can evaluate the self-esteem, something like that. You can have the idea to apply in your SRI. So we're coming to the end of our session. Anyone have a question or not? If not, Adams, Terence, and Mark, any final message, any final word you'd like to give to us before we move to the next session?
I would like to finish by saying it's great to see, as we've said, you know, all of the developments that are happening, and I completely understand the need or the desire for sort of reliable data, and Dr. Santi's work is really interesting. I look forward to learning more about it. But you know, I'm left with my favorite phrase that we use a lot within the movement of enough precision for the decision, and I think with Terence's, you know, really timely reminder about risk. So, you know, if we see a high SROI, there's probably a significant level of risk that is not realized compared to perhaps some of the lower ones. So I think building that dimension in is really, really crucial. But also just, you know, not to scare people sometimes that we don't need scientific levels of rigor to be able to do SROI. If you're a small enterprise, a small charity, a small social enterprise, then quite often, you know, enough precision for the decision does not mean scientific levels, and it's good enough as long as it helps you manage impacts and improve people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes.
Thanks, Adam, for the comment about return and risk. So it echoed my presentation. I also use the analogy from the the finance sector. When you talk about the stock market, the stock price, in the stock market, you will also calculate something like the PE ratio. So each stock has a PE ratio. Some stocks has higher PE ratio and some stocks have lower PE ratio. So normally we won't just directly compare the PE ratio. We will say in the same industry, in the same categories, the company, they're similar in nature, then maybe we could compare the PE ratio. So it's very good that the analysis of the SR report that shows that what's the range of the SR ratio, but we should always, in addition to thinking about risk, we should also think about the specific context and specific industry of the operator included in the SR report, so that at the end of the day, we do want to make comparison, but we need to be very careful, very cautious in making those comparisons. And finally, I think for Thailand, for Taiwan, and for Hong Kong, we are all new in this space. So we need a lot of peer learning. So I eagerly anticipate more opportunity to share research information so that we could progress, our society can progress side by side, and we could use social impact, we could do social impact reporting, and also and more importantly, we need to do better in managing our impact using the SRI principles and the IMP framework. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Mark?
Oh, no, I have no comment. I think, yeah, I think it's good to learn from each other, and hopefully we can meet in front, face to face next year in Bangkok, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully we can hold a conference here in Bangkok next year. Thank you everyone for great leadership to move forward our society. So let's join together and continue to work together to build back a better future together. ขอบคุณนะคะ สวัสดีอดัม Bye bye.
Bye bye.
See you again. ขอบคุณทุกท่านค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
ขอบคุณน้องจันทร์สันติค่ะ ค่ะเชิญค่ะ
ขอบคุณนะคะผู้ดำเนินรายการนะคะคุณสกุลทิพย์กิรติพันธวงศ์แล้วก็ดร.สันติเต็มประเสริฐสกุลค่ะขอเสียงปรบมือด้วยค่ะค่ะลำดับถัดไปนะคะก็จะเป็นช่วงเวลาที่เป็นหนึ่งในเรื่องพีคของงานวันนี้เลยนะคะในช่วงของ